When a struggling videographer, Zane Calderon, films a heartwarming reunion between a homeless man and a stranger who gives him food, he never expects the footage to go viral. But as millions watch the emotional moment, an unsettling truth emerges. This isn't just a simple act of kindness. The homeless man, Ronan Vexley, has been hiding a painful secret, and the stranger, Silas Drake, is not who he appears to be. What starts as a feel-good viral story soon unravels into a decades-old mystery that shakes everyone involved. As Zane digs deeper, he uncovers a past betrayal, lost identities, and a truth that changes all their lives forever. Before we jump into this incredible story, drop a comment, let us know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy this video, be sure to subscribe for more. Zane Calderon adjusted his camera, framing the busy street through his lens. He had always believed in capturing raw, human moments, the kind that told a story without words. But lately, his luck had run dry. No viral clips, no new gigs, just an endless cycle of rejections. That's when he spotted him. A homeless man, slumped against the cold brick wall of a coffee shop, his face buried in his hands. Something about him, his posture, his silence, felt different from the others on the street. And then, a stranger walked up to him. Zane pressed record. The stranger, a tall man in a gray coat, knelt down in front of the homeless man. He handed him a warm sandwich and a cup of coffee. A small act of kindness. But the moment the homeless man looked up, his face twisted in shock. The camera caught every second. The slight tremble in his hands, the way his lips parted as if forming words he couldn't say. The stranger froze too. It was as if they recognized each other. Then, something unexpected happened. The homeless man started crying. Zane uploaded the video that night with a simple caption. A single moment can change a life. By morning, it had over 1 million views. People flooded the comments. Who are these guys? They clearly know each other. Someone please find them. This feels like a lost family moment. I'm crying. This is the kind of kindness we need in the world. But beneath the praise and speculation, Zane had an uneasy feeling. Something about their expressions haunted him. Determined to find out more, Zane returned to the same street the next day. The homeless man was gone. The stranger was nowhere in sight. He showed the video to some of the nearby vendors, hoping someone knew them. One elderly woman squinted at the screen, then muttered, "That homeless man, his name is Ronan. He doesn't talk much, but he's been around here for years." Zane had his first lead. Ronan Vexley had no records, no known relatives, no past. It was as if he had appeared on the streets out of nowhere. When Zane finally tracked him down in a shelter, Ronan refused to talk at first. He seemed shaken, as if the viral video had stirred something inside him he wasn't ready to face. But when Zane mentioned the stranger, the man who had given him food, Ronan's hands clenched into fists. "I never thought I'd see him again," he whispered. Zane needed to find the other man. After scouring social media, a comment under his video caught his attention. "That man looks like Silas Drake. He used to be a lawyer." A quick search confirmed it. Silas Drake, a once prominent defense attorney, had vanished from the public eye years ago. What was he doing giving food to a homeless man? And why had Ronan reacted the way he did? Zane finally reached out to Silas. At first, he ignored the calls. But when Zane sent a single message, "I know you recognized him," Silas responded. They met at a quiet cafe. Silas looked tense, his fingers tapping against his coffee cup. "Yes," he admitted. "I know Ronan, but I wish I didn't." Silas hesitated before speaking. "Years ago, I defended a man named Ronan Vexley in court. He was accused of something terrible." Zane leaned forward. "Accused of what?" Silas sighed. "Murder." According to Silas, Ronan had once been a respected firefighter. But one night, a fire broke out in an abandoned building. A young girl trapped inside never made it out. The authorities claimed Ronan had intentionally set the fire. Silas had defended him, believing in his innocence. But the trial was brutal. Ronan was convicted. Yet somehow, years later, he was on the streets, free. Zane confronted Ronan with what he'd learned. At first, he denied everything. But eventually the truth spilled out. "I didn't set that fire," Ronan whispered. His voice shook. "But I know who did." Zane's blood ran cold. Ronan revealed that on the night of the fire, he had seen someone else in the building. A man who fled before the blaze consumed everything. He had told the police, but no one believed him. And then he dropped the bombshell. It was Silas. Zane reeled. Silas, the man who had defended him in court, was the real culprit? No, Zane shook his head. That doesn't make sense. But Ronan's eyes were filled with a desperate certainty. He set me up. He was protecting someone else. Zane needed proof. He searched old news archives, digging into the fire case. That's when he found a name that kept appearing: Marcus Drake, Silas's younger brother. Marcus had been a troubled man. Multiple arrests. A history of arson. Had Silas framed Ronan to protect his brother? Zane confronted Silas, laying out everything he'd discovered. But Silas didn't deny it. Instead, he looked tired. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way," he murmured. Silas finally admitted the truth. Marcus had started the fire that night, and Silas, blinded by loyalty, had done everything to shift the blame onto Ronan. "But Marcus is dead now," Silas whispered, "and I can't undo the damage I've done." Zane recorded their conversation. The truth needed to come out. When the video dropped, the internet exploded again. People demanded Ronan's name be cleared. Legal experts debated whether Silas could face consequences. But Ronan? He didn't care about any of it. "I just wanted someone to believe me," Ronan said. And for the first time in years, he smiled. He wasn't just a homeless man. He was a man with a story. A man who had finally been heard. 1 month later, Zane found Ronan again. This time, he wasn't on the streets. He had been taken in by an old friend. He had a place to stay. A fresh start. Silas had disappeared from public life. His career was over. His conscience, however, would haunt him forever. And Zane? He had captured the most unexpected reunion on camera. A reunion of truth, justice, and a long-overdue reckoning. The video exposing Silas Drake's confession spread like wildfire. Major news outlets picked it up, legal analysts debated the implications, and the public demanded action. But for Ronan, the weight of the past still pressed down on him. Even though the world now knew the truth, decades of pain didn't just disappear overnight. Zane sat across from him at a small diner. "What now?" he asked. Ronan stirred his coffee, staring into the swirling liquid. "I don't know how to be anything other than the man I was forced to become." Silas Drake was nowhere to be found. His law firm cut ties with him, his accounts were frozen pending an investigation, and his house was abandoned. No one knew where he had gone. Some speculated he fled the country. Others thought he might have taken a darker path. Zane had a gut feeling they hadn't seen the last of him. Determined to dig deeper, Zane sought out old acquaintances of Marcus Drake. He met with a retired police officer who had worked on the arson cases years ago. "Marcus was bad news," the officer admitted. "But there's something you don't know. He wasn't alone that night." Zane's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "There was another person at that fire. If Marcus hadn't acted alone, then who was the second person?" The officer handed Zane a faded file. This never made it into the official case, but a witness reported seeing someone else running from the scene. Zane flipped through the documents. The witness described a man, tall, wearing a dark hoodie. The only problem? The witness vanished before they could testify. Ronan had never known about a second suspect. When Zane told him, his hands shook. "Then I wasn't just framed. I was set up by more than one person." But who was the missing figure? And why had the witness disappeared? Zane's instincts screamed that this was bigger than just the Drake brothers. One night, Zane received an anonymous email. "You're asking too many questions. Some things should stay buried." Attached was an address. A warning? Or an invitation? The address led Zane to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The place reeked of decay, its walls covered in graffiti. Inside, dust-covered broken furniture and shattered glass crunched beneath his feet. Then he saw it, burn marks on the walls. This place had burned before. Near the back, Zane found a rusted filing cabinet. Inside, he uncovered something shocking: sealed documents from the original fire investigation. And one name kept appearing over and over: Elias Mercer. Elias Mercer was a name Zane had seen before. A powerful real estate mogul. Why was his name connected to a decades-old fire case? Ronan's face darkened when he heard the name. That man? He was the one trying to buy up half the city back then. Suddenly it all clicked. The building that burned wasn't just an accident. It was part of a larger scheme. Elias Mercer had wanted that land. But when the owner refused to sell, the fire happened. The owner lost everything. The city deemed the building unstable, and the property was sold straight to Mercer. Had Marcus Drake been working for him? Ronan clenched his fists. "It was never about me. I was just the easiest scapegoat." Silas hadn't just been protecting his brother. He had been protecting something much bigger. Zane posted his findings online, urging the missing witness to come forward. 2 days later, he received a message. I never meant to run. But I was scared. Meet me at 10 p.m. The sender? A woman named Leona Fairbanks. Leona was hesitant when she met Zane. I saw Marcus that night, she said, voice trembling. But he wasn't alone. Zane's pulse raced. Who was with him? Leona's eyes filled with fear. Silas wasn't just covering for Marcus. He was there too. Silas hadn't just framed Ronan to protect his brother. He had been an accomplice. Now that Zane had proof, he knew Silas wouldn't stay in hiding for long. Someone would come after him. And he was right. That night, Zane's apartment was broken into. His footage was deleted, his notes destroyed. But they had made one mistake. They left behind a note, stop. Or else. Realizing he was in danger, Zane went off the grid, taking Ronan with him. Meanwhile, the internet erupted. The story was bigger than ever. The public wanted justice. Days later, Silas released a statement denying everything. He claimed he was being framed. But Zane had one last card to play. Zane scheduled a live stream. He played the recordings of Leona's testimony. He showed the hidden documents. And then, the final blow, an old voicemail from Silas to Marcus. We can't let him walk free. If Ronan takes the fall, then so be it. The world watched as authorities finally took action. Silas was arrested for perjury, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. And Elias Mercer? He disappeared before the police could find him. After decades of living as a forgotten man, Ronan Vexley was finally declared innocent. But what came next? With a settlement from the state, Ronan bought a small home, a place to start over. Zane visited him on moving day. So what now? Ronan smiled. I think it's time I start living again. Just when things seemed to settle, Zane received an anonymous message. You think this is over? Think again. Elias Mercer wasn't gone. With Mercer still in hiding, Zane knew he wasn't safe yet. The man had power, and power meant control. And people like him? They didn't go down quietly. Zane, now working with an investigative journalist, traced Mercer's last known contacts. Every lead pointed to one place, a private estate off the coast. Zane and the journalist went undercover, sneaking onto Mercer's property. But they weren't the only ones looking for him. Law enforcement had been tipped off. Cornered and desperate, Mercer tried to flee by boat. But justice had finally caught up to him. As sirens blared and helicopters roared overhead, Elias Mercer was taken into custody. With Mercer arrested, every piece of the puzzle fell into place. The case was officially closed. Zane's work had changed lives. Now news outlets wanted to work with him. For the first time, his passion had a purpose. Months later, Zane received a letter from Ronan. Thank you for believing in me. One video had unraveled decades of lies. Zane had set out to capture a simple moment. Instead, he had rewritten history. And in the end, it wasn't just a reunion of two men. It was a reunion of truth and justice, caught on camera for the world to see. What if one video could change everything? Zane never expected a simple interview to unravel decades of lies, corruption, and betrayal. But the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep it's buried. This story isn't just about one man's redemption. It's about the power of justice, the resilience of those wronged, and the courage it takes to uncover the truth. If this story moved you, share it. Let it be a reminder that the truth is worth fighting for. Because sometimes the most unexpected reunion is with justice itself. Like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uncover the truth.